If someone you loved died, and then 3 weeks later you saw them walking down the street again, what would you do? Would you run toward them, or would you run away? Because sometimes the most terrifying thing about death is that it might not stay permanent. This story begins with something that should have been final: a funeral. Rain falls slowly over a quiet cemetery as black umbrellas gather around a freshly dug grave. People whisper condolences. The priest reads gentle words about peace and acceptance. Flowers begin to cover the coffin as it lowers into the ground. For everyone else standing there, this moment is closure. The end of a life. But for Ren, it feels like the end of the world. Ren is not the type of person who cries loudly. He doesn't collapse into dramatic grief. Instead, something inside him simply empties, because the person inside that coffin wasn't just someone he loved. She was the person who gave his life shape. Her name was Aira. Aira had always been the kind of person who stabilized everything around her. When Ren overthought things, she laughed and pulled him outside. When he doubted himself, she reminded him he wasn't as alone as he believed. She had this quiet warmth that made ordinary days feel safe. And now she was gone. The accident had been sudden, violent. A driver losing control on a rain-slick road. A collision. Shattered glass. Sirens. By the time Ren arrived at the hospital, there was nothing left to save. The doctors said it quickly, the way professionals learn to deliver devastating news. She didn't make it. Those 3 words ended a life. But they also ended the person Ren used to be. The days after the funeral become a blur of quiet routines that feel hollow. Ren returns to school. He walks the same streets they used to walk together. Every familiar place feels slightly wrong now, like a stage after the actors have left. Sometimes he opens his phone and scrolls through their messages. Sometimes he sits by the river where they used to meet after classes. Most of the time, he just feels empty. Grief is strange that way. It doesn't scream forever. Eventually, it just becomes silence. 3 weeks pass, and Ren slowly begins the painful process of accepting something people always say but never truly believe until it happens to them. Life goes on. Until one evening, someone runs into his house breathless. It's his friend Daichi. "You need to come with me," he says. Ren barely looks up. "I'm not in the mood," but Daichi grabs his arm. "You're going to think I'm insane, but I swear I saw her." Ren's chest tightens instantly. "Don't say things like that. No. Listen, don't. Because grief sometimes makes people imagine things. Sometimes you see someone in a crowd who looks almost identical. Sometimes your brain tries to repair reality by lying." Ren refuses to chase ghosts. But Daichi won't stop. "I saw Aira near the river." That sentence freezes the room. For a moment, Ren can't breathe, because that river was their place. And suddenly something inside him begins moving again, a fragile, dangerous thing called hope. He runs, not because he believes it, but because a part of him desperately wants to be wrong. The sun is setting when Ren reaches the riverbank. Orange light reflects across the water. The air is calm. People walk along the path quietly. And then he sees her, standing near the railing, alive, Aira. Her silver hair moves gently in the evening wind. Her posture is relaxed, like she's simply enjoying the sunset. She looks completely healthy, completely normal, completely impossible. For a long moment, Ren just stands there, because his brain refuses to accept what his eyes are showing him. She died. He saw the hospital. He stood at the funeral. He watched the coffin disappear into the ground. And yet, she turns slightly. Their eyes meet, and she smiles politely. Not warmly, not with recognition. Just the casual friendliness you give a stranger. Ren's heart begins pounding so violently he can hear it in his ears. Slowly, cautiously, he walks toward her. Every step feels unreal, until he finally stops a few feet away. "Aira," he whispers. She tilts her head. "Sorry, do I know you?" Those 6 words break something inside him more completely than the funeral ever did, because death had taken her body. But this had taken her memory. Doctors eventually examine her. They run every test imaginable: brain scans, blood tests, neurological exams. Physically, she is perfectly healthy. There is no trace of the accident. No scars, no trauma, no explanation. But one thing becomes painfully clear. She remembers nothing. Not her home, not her school, not her friends, and not Ren. The town quickly turns her story into something hopeful. People call it a miracle. Some say God gave her another chance. Others claim the accident simply caused severe amnesia. But Ren doesn't care about theories. All he sees is the girl he loved standing in front of him, looking at him like a stranger. At first he keeps his distance, watching her interact with everyone like a visitor in her own life. Her parents cry when they hug her. Her classmates try awkwardly to act normal, and Aira responds politely to everything, kind, friendly, but emotionally disconnected. It's like the person she used to be has been erased. After several days of watching this painful reconstruction, Ren makes a decision. If she doesn't remember him, then he will introduce himself again. The first conversation is awkward. "My name is Ren," he says quietly. "Aira," she replies with a small smile. "Nice to meet you." The words feel like knives, but Ren keeps going. He begins showing her photos, pictures from festivals, pictures from school trips, pictures of the two of them laughing together. She studies each one carefully. "That girl really looks like me. It is you. But I don't remember any of this." "That's okay," Ren says softly. "We can make new memories." And slowly, they begin spending time together again. At first, the conversations are cautious. She asks simple questions about her past. Ren answers gently, trying not to overwhelm her. They walk along the same river path. They visit the same cafe they used to share desserts in. They sit in the same park where they once watched fireworks. And something strange begins happening. Aira starts laughing in familiar ways. She starts teasing him playfully. Sometimes she finishes his sentences without realizing it. Tiny pieces of her old personality begin resurfacing, and Ren convinces himself this means something important. Maybe love isn't just memory. Maybe love is deeper than that. Maybe emotions remember things the brain forgets. Hope begins growing again. Dangerous, fragile hope. One evening they sit together near the river as the sky turns purple with dusk. Aira smiles softly. "You're very patient with me." Ren shrugs. "I guess I just enjoy being around you." She studies him curiously. "I feel strangely comfortable with you." His heart skips. Maybe, just maybe, they can rebuild everything. But the universe has other plans. Because the next afternoon, Aira collapses. There is no warning, no illness, no accident. One moment she's walking beside him. The next moment her body simply goes still. Doctors try everything, but the result is the same. She dies again. This time Ren screams, because now he understands something terrifying. Death is no longer final. It's a reset button. 3 days later, someone spots her again. Near the river, alive, confused, and Ren realizes the horrifying truth. She will keep coming back, but never as the same person. Love isn't restarting. It's being rewritten. And despite everything, despite the pain, despite the impossible situation, Ren makes a decision that will destroy him piece by piece. If she keeps returning, then he will keep loving her, again and again and again. No matter how many times the story resets, because even a borrowed version of her feels better than a world without her. And that is how the cycle begins. At first, Ren believed the worst part of loving someone who dies repeatedly would be watching them die. He was wrong. The worst part is watching them come back, because every resurrection begins the same way, and every resurrection ends the same way. But what happens in between slowly begins to take something from him, something he didn't even realize could be stolen. Memory. The cycle begins quietly. 3 days after Aira's second death, someone spots her again near the river, the same place she always returns, the same confused expression, the same polite smile offered to strangers. When Ren arrives, she is leaning against the railing, watching the water flow beneath the bridge like she's seeing the world for the first time, because in a way, she is. When she notices him approaching, she straightens slightly. "Hi," she says. Her voice is warm, friendly, and completely unfamiliar. "Sorry, do I know you?" The question lands softly this time. The first time, it shattered him. But now Ren understands something important. This isn't a miracle. It's a reset. And resets follow rules. So, he begins again. "My name is Ren." She nods politely. "I'm Aira." "I know." She laughs awkwardly. "Well, that's convenient." And just like that, the reconstruction begins. Ren slowly develops a system, a ritual, something precise enough to guide someone through a life they've completely forgotten. First, introductions, then photographs, then places, then stories. Each day he rebuilds a small part of the person she used to be. They visit the cafe where she used to complain about bitter coffee. They sit beneath the tree where she once confessed she hated thunderstorms. They walk along the same riverbank where they used to talk until sunset turned the sky orange. At first, Aira reacts to everything with gentle curiosity. But after a few days, something begins changing. She starts laughing more naturally. She begins teasing him. Sometimes she finishes sentences he hasn't even completed yet, like echoes of her old personality are still hidden somewhere inside her, waiting to be triggered. And Ren begins believing something dangerous. Maybe memory isn't necessary. Maybe love can rebuild itself. Maybe emotions remember what the brain forgets. For a while, that belief keeps him going, until the first memory disappears. It happens on a normal afternoon. Ren is sitting alone in his room, scrolling through old photos on his phone. Aira is smiling in almost all of them. Sometimes she's laughing with her head thrown back. Sometimes she's leaning against his shoulder. Sometimes she's making fun of the camera. One picture makes him pause. It's from the day they shared their first kiss. He remembers taking the photo afterward. They had both been embarrassed, both laughing nervously, both pretending the moment wasn't a huge deal even though it absolutely was. Ren stares at the image and waits for the memory to appear. But nothing happens. No emotions surface. No sensory details. No vivid recollection. Just a blank space. He knows the event happened. The photo proves it, but the actual experience is gone. Like someone deleted the file but left the icon. At first he assumes it's stress. Grief does strange things to memory. But over the next few days, he begins noticing other gaps. Small ones at first. A joke she used to tell that he can't quite recall. A song they used to listen to together that suddenly feels unfamiliar. Little details fading like photographs left too long in sunlight. And the more he thinks about it, the more a terrible possibility begins forming in his mind. Maybe something is taking payment. Not from Aira, from him. The pattern becomes clearer after the next cycle, because Aira dies again, just like before. No warning, no illness. One moment she's walking beside him through a crowded street. The next moment she collapses. Doctors rush in. Machines beep urgently. But the result never changes. She dies. And 3 days later, she returns. Ren already knows where to find her. The river. Always the river. She stands there quietly watching the water again. Alive. Confused. Reset. And the reconstruction begins again. But this time, something is different. The process moves faster. Much faster. Where it once took weeks for her personality to resurface, now it only takes days. Where it once took days for familiarity to appear, now it only takes hours. It's like her emotions are remembering faster, but the world refuses to give them more time, because she dies again, sooner, and the next return comes even faster. Weeks become days, days become hours. The cycle is accelerating, and Ren begins noticing the cost increasing too. More memories disappear. Not just small ones, important ones. He opens a message thread between them and reads through old conversations that feel like they belong to strangers. He watches videos of them laughing together and feels like he's observing someone else's life. It's not just that the memories are fading, the emotional connection behind them is eroding. And that terrifies him more than her deaths ever did, because death removes people from your life. But this removes the meaning they left behind. Eventually Ren reaches a conclusion that chills him to the bone. The universe isn't malfunctioning, it's balancing something. Every time Aira returns, something must be paid. And the price is his memory of loving her. Love is the fuel, memory is the currency, and resurrection is the transaction. He proves it during the next cycle. When Aira returns again, Ren decides to test the theory. Instead of rebuilding their relationship slowly, he accelerates it. He shows her everything immediately. Photos, videos, old messages, places they used to go. He pushes the emotional connection as fast as possible, and the results are immediate. Aira begins remembering fragments within hours, small flashes, a feeling of familiarity, a sudden laugh at a joke she claimed she shouldn't understand. For a brief moment, Ren believes he might break the cycle. Maybe if she remembers everything fast enough, the curse won't trigger. Maybe they can outrun the reset, but hope has a price. Because the moment Aira looks at him and says softly, "I feel like I've loved you before," she collapses and dies again. That's when Ren understands the final rule. The closer they get, the faster the cycle resets. Love isn't fixing the curse, it's feeding it. And yet, Ren continues, because every time she smiles at him again, it still feels worth it. Even when he knows it shouldn't. Even when he knows the cost. Because addiction rarely feels dangerous while it's happening. Hope becomes dependency. Reunion becomes necessity. and love slowly transforms into erosion. Friends start noticing the change in him. Ren sleeps less. He forgets conversations. Sometimes he stares blankly at familiar places like he's seeing them for the first time. But he refuses to stop, because stopping would mean letting her disappear forever. And he isn't ready for that kind of ending. So the cycle continues. Reset, rebuild, collapse, reset, rebuild, collapse, until one return changes everything. Ren finds Aira by the river again, alive, bright, smiling. But this time, she speaks first. Before he can introduce himself, before he can explain anything, she looks directly at him and says quietly, "I think you're important to me." The words freeze him in place, because this has never happened before. For the first time, she remembered something on her own. Not a place, not a story, a feeling, love itself. And for a moment, Ren believes they've finally broken the curse. Maybe emotion is stronger than the reset. Maybe love really does survive everything. But the universe answers that hope the same way it always does. A few hours later, Aira dies again. And when she returns 3 days later, Ren realizes the true cost of what he's been doing. Because, as he watches her smile politely at him, he suddenly notices something terrifying. He can't remember her voice, not the way it sounded when she laughed, not the way it changed when she whispered his name, not even its tone. Only the idea of it remains, like a memory of a memory. The cycle is approaching its final stage, total erasure. And Ren is beginning to understand something horrifying. If he continues loving her, there may soon be nothing left inside him that remembers why. By the time Aira dies again, Ren already knows where she will return. The river. She always comes back to the river. At first he thought it was coincidence, then he thought it was fate. Now he understands it's something else entirely. A reset point, like the world itself is loading an earlier version of her. 3 days after her last death, Ren walks slowly toward the bridge at sunset. The sky is painted with soft orange light, the same quiet evening glow that has witnessed every reunion before this one. But something inside him feels different now. Not hope, not excitement. Something closer to fear. Because Ren understands something he refused to accept before. Every time Aira comes back, he loses another piece of her. Not her body, not her presence, but the memories that made loving her real. The closer they grow, the faster those memories disappear. And this time, the cost may be everything. When Ren reaches the riverbank, he sees her almost immediately, standing exactly where she always appears, alive, bright, unaware of the gravity she carries with her. Aira turns as he approaches. Their eyes meet, and she smiles politely. Not warmly, not lovingly. Just the casual friendliness you give a stranger passing on the street. She lifts her hand slightly in greeting. "Hi," she says, then tilts her head. "Sorry, do I know you?" The words should hurt. They always have before, but this time something strange happens. Ren still feels warmth when he looks at her. But the emotional memory behind that warmth is fading. Like a dream dissolving the moment you wake up. He knows he loved her. He knows they shared something extraordinary, but the details are slipping away. He can't remember the exact sound of her laughter. He can't remember the way she used to say his name. Even the memory of their first kiss now feels distant. Like a story someone else told him once. And suddenly Ren realizes the terrifying truth. If he restarts the cycle again, if he rebuilds their love one more time, there might be nothing left of her inside him when it ends. That thought follows him home. That night he pulls out the notebooks he started writing after the first resurrection, page after page filled with memories he refused to lose. Descriptions of moments he once believed would live in his heart forever. He reads slowly. The first time she laughed at one of my stupid jokes. The way she pretends not to be scared of thunderstorms. The first time she said my name differently. Ren pauses. He reads that line again. The first time she said my name differently, but he can't remember what that sounded like. The words describe the moment perfectly, but the emotion is gone. It feels like reading about someone else's life, someone else's love. And for the first time, Ren finally understands the curse completely. This wasn't about death. This wasn't about resurrection. It was about erosion. The more he tried to hold on to her, the more the world took away the reason he loved her. Eventually there would be nothing left. Not the memories, not the emotions, not even the pain. Just emptiness. Have you ever loved someone so much that you would do anything to keep them with you forever? That was Ren's whole world. His world was Aira. Their story wasn't just one lifetime. It was an endless cycle, a beautiful, repeating dream. Every time they found each other, it was like the first time all over again. The thrill of a first glance, the warmth of a first touch, the magic of falling in love under a sky full of stars. They were two souls entwined by fate, destined to meet, love, and then, tragically, part. Ren remembered everything. Every single lifetime. He remembered Aira as a painter in bustling 1920s Paris, her fingers stained with every color of the rainbow. He remembered her as a quiet librarian in a small town, her eyes lighting up when she found a book she loved. He remembered her as a fearless pilot, soaring through the clouds. In every life, she was different, yet always the same. Always his Aira. But with these beautiful memories came the crushing weight of loss. Each time, just as their love reached its peak, fate would cruelly snatch her away. An accident, an illness, a war, it was always something. And Ren was left alone, carrying the memories and the heartbreak, waiting for the cycle to begin again. At first, he saw it as a blessing, a chance to love her over and over. He tried to change their fate. He would steer her away from the street where the accident happened. He would insist she see a doctor sooner. He would beg her not to go to the front lines. Sometimes, he'd succeed in changing the details, buying them a few more precious days, a few more stolen moments. But the end result was always the same. He couldn't outrun destiny. The universe, it seemed, demanded its price for their extraordinary connection. The weight of 1,000 goodbyes began to crush him. The joy of finding her was now shadowed by the inevitable pain of losing her. He saw the flicker of tragedy in her eyes, even on their happiest days. The love that was once his greatest treasure had become his heaviest burden. He looked at Aira in their current life. She was a musician, her melodies filling their small apartment with so much life and joy. She had no idea about their past, about the cycle. To her, this was their one and only love story, perfect and complete. And watching her, so full of hope, Ren finally understood he was being selfish. He was holding on to her, pulling her back into this loop of beautiful suffering, just to ease his own loneliness. The memories weren't just his, they were hers too, buried deep within her soul, causing a ripple of sadness she couldn't explain. He realized that true love wasn't about holding on, it was about letting go. It was about wanting the best for the person you love, even if it means they are no longer part of your life. The thought was like a physical blow, a pain sharper than any loss he had ever felt. To break the cycle meant he would never see her again, never hear her laugh, never feel her hand in his. He would be truly, utterly alone. That night, under the same starry sky where they had fallen in love 1,000 times, he made the most difficult decision of his eternal life. He held her close, memorizing every detail of her face. He whispered that he loved her more than words could ever say. And then, with all the love in his heart, he let her go. He severed the thread that bound their souls together. In that moment, he felt a part of himself die, but he also felt Aira's soul become lighter, freer. She would go on to live a full, happy life, unburdened by their shared destiny. She would never remember him, but she would be safe. Ren's story became a quiet one, a solitary existence filled with the ghosts of 1,000 lifetimes of love. Sometimes, he would hear a melody on the wind that reminded him of her, or see a flash of color that brought back the memory of her paintings. And he would smile, a sad, knowing smile, because he knew that somewhere, out there, Aira was living freely, and that, he realized, was the greatest love story of all. A story not of possession, but of sacrifice, the ultimate act of love, to preserve its meaning by letting it end. Thanks for listening.